Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and in this video we'll talk about process automation. Well, yes, taking a look at tools for automation, we have three primary tools, right? Workflow rules, which we have already discussed, and then we have process builders and we have flow builders, right? In this video specifically we'll be talking about process builders, right? So we'll cover flow builder in another course, and I know you guys are excited about the flow builder course, but in this video we'll specifically talk about process builders, right? Now, what do process builders do? I mean, it's common that, it does automation, but to understand in a brief manner, we can say that, any of the tasks that we assign, any emails that we have to send out, any kind of record updates, field updates that we need to do are kind of vital to our standard processes or business functionality, right? So instead of doing these things repetitively or doing it manually or getting the end user to do it, we can configure processes to do them automatically, right? So let's say there's a trigger that happens and your process gets executed. Let's say there's a criteria that matches, your email is sent out. So all of this automation can be taken care by process builders. So what does process builder do? They help you automate your business processes and give you a graphical representation as you build it. Now, what is this graphical representation? We'll see that very soon. Before that, let's talk about workflows versus process builder. Yes, this is where we are right now. We have already covered workflows and now we are trying to understand process builders. So before jumping into process builders, let's see the differences. So why process builders over workflows? Ideally, there were two of these automation tools we had until Flow came and took over everything. But workflows are ideal for single object processes, right? Single object processes where every change that is meant to happen occurs within the context of a single object, which means you might not want to, have any kind of chain of events or maybe related record updates to be done. If there's only a requirement wherein you have to work on a single object, that's where you could use workflow rules, right? You could define an entry criteria, evaluate the condition, and then execute whatever automation you wanted to do, be it a field update, be it a email alert, or it could be a new task or an outbound message, right? But what does process builder do? Process builder stands best for automating simple if-then scenarios, where you would want to do something if a condition is met. Also, when compared to a workflow, the diversity of things that it lets you do is much more. So it's very clear that process builders are comparatively more powerful than workflows because they let you do many things apart from just, those 3 or 4 things we get to do on workflows, right? And also you get a good if-then scenario representation in process builders, which means let's say you have n number of scenarios that you want to automate. Every one of them can be written in a single process builder and you can kind of derive a flow chart, and if this is true, execute this, or else if this is true, execute this. If none of these are working, still execute the third one and see if it matches and execute this. So this kind of if-then scenarios, if-else if ladder or nested scenarios can be covered through process builders. All right. Now, what can we do with process builders? This is all that I've listed below, and this is mostly what we can do. So we can create a record of any type. You can update any related record, not just the record or its parent, right? So if you understand workflow rules, they are single object processes, right? You can only update the record that triggered the workflow rule, right? Or maybe the parent if it is a master detail. But in case of process builder, you can update any related record, right? You can use a quick action to create records, update records, or even log a call. Even this can be done through process builders, right? You can even invoke another process from your current process, and then you can launch a flow which cannot be scheduled, but it can be launched from your process builders. So you cannot launch a flow from workflows, but you can do that from process builders, right? Then similar to workflow rules, you can send out an email, and then you can also send out push notifications or custom notifications from process builders. You can post to chatter if you want to post anything. You can even submit a record for approval, right? If you need your processes to do more than what process actions allow, simply automations, you don't have to worry, because if there's a very custom logic that does not set into the automation side, you can even call Apex or a flow from your process, right? So you have reservations for doing that as well. So let's jump into process builder basics now that we are done with the introduction. So when does a process start? Before jumping into this section right here, let me quickly show you how things look like on the Salesforce side. So I am on the setup page and I can simply type process builders on my quick find box. So under process automation, I have process builder, and when I click on this, this opens up, right? And now since flow builder has taken up everything, so you'll see this message, and you'll be asked to write only flows. But since this is a crucial part of Salesforce, I would still want to cover process builder separately, right? We'll take a look at flow builder very soon, but right now let's focus on process builder. So it says that go with the flow with flow builder, the future of low code automation. You can do everything that you do with process builder and more, and Salesforce plans to retire process builder and recommends using automation in flow builders. Okay, but if you want to continue with the process builder right now, you can do that. What Salesforce has done with this new release is that they do not allow you to create any workflow rules anymore, which means there is no way you can create workflow rules, but you still can create process builders. And once that is also retired, we'll jump into flow builders. Cool. All right, so for now, this is how the process builder screen looks like, and this is what has been here for the last 5-10 years while we have been working, and this has helped us achieve a lot of automation, which is why this makes a good tool for developers to implement low code automation. If you notice, it says welcome to the process builder. You can easily automate everything, and you can click on the new button to get started, right? And it takes only few clicks to select your object, define your criteria, choose what to automate, and then activate the process, and you're done. All right, so they have given you an example where it says that whenever the opportunity stage is closed in one and the amount is greater than $500,000, you can create a contract for the opportunity, right? So that's some kind of automation you can do. So I'll go ahead and click on the new button, and this will prompt me to try it in flow builder. But for now, since for the sake of this course right here, we'll continue in process builder. Okay, so it starts here. Let's go back and let's understand what does it say. So when does a process start? The process starts when a record changes. It is either created or edited, and it is invoked by another process, or maybe a platform event message is received, right? The first scenario is similar to your workflow rule, whether the record, when do you want to trigger your process builder? That means whenever the record is created, or maybe created and edited. Right? That's the first event. The second one is, do you want the process to start if it is invoked by another process? Like we saw on the slide, what can we do with process builders? You can invoke a process from another one, right? So if that's the case, you would define this particular option. And there is something that's called platform events, which we still have not covered, but we'll cover soon. But platform events are kind of publish subscribe models for streaming and fetching any kind of triggers and then acting on it. So any kind of platform event message is received, in that case also you can trigger a process builder. All right, so this one is also available. If I take a look at the process builder now, it prompts me to create a process, and I'll just give it a name. I'll say my first process. All right, and then I'll put a good description based on what my requirement is, and you see these are the three options available, right? Mostly you would want to use the record changes, because you would want to trigger your process builder based on whatever has changed on a record. So you would go with record changes, right? If you want it to be invoked from another process, you would say this will be invoked from another process, and you would kind of invoke it from another process builder, right? And in case you have a platform event configured, and you have a message that is sent out, you can use this particular option for starting the process. All right, so this is your process setting. And then what needs to be defined? You need to define three things: the object for which you want to write the process builder, the criteria node, and then the immediate and the scheduled actions. We'll take a look into what these things are. So when I click on the save button, right, so this is how your process builder UI looks like. Pretty much fancy compared to the workflow rules, which were a bit traditional and tacky. And here, like you see, the graphical representation is kind of a flowchart implementation. You can start from here and stop here. And what do you have to define in the middle? You have to define the object, the criteria node. Where do you define the criteria node? You define it here, and then you can either have an immediate action or a scheduled action, right? So yes, you can even schedule your actions. Instead of having them triggered immediately, you can even schedule them for some time later. All right, so this is how it looks like. And why is it powerful? Let me show you. So if I go ahead and say add object, I'll just choose an object account, and you see it says that start the process when the record is created, or when it is created and updated, right? So I can choose any one of them, and I can say save, and then I can add a criteria node. What would be my criteria? I would say is my account private, right? I'll just ask a question and I can execute my, I can filter out my criteria and only run the actions if the criteria meets, right? So I'll say conditions are met for now, and here I'll say set conditions, account type, maybe the type field is there, let's see, account type, and I'll say this is equal to, let's say customer channel, right? Is my account customer channel? That is my criteria, let's say, right? So if this condition is met, I will just say save, and then I can go ahead and do an immediate action, right? If I click on the add action button here, you'll see everything I mentioned. You can write an Apex code, you can create a record, you can alert users via an email, you can start a flow from here, you can post to chatter, you can invoke another process, you can create or update a record or even log a call through quick action, you can update documents or attach documents to record using Quip, you can send out a custom notification, you can submit records for approval, and you can even update records. So those are your immediate actions. And if you want to set something on a scheduler, you can click on the set schedule button, and you can mention that, after 5 days after the created date, whenever the record is created, or maybe before, or maybe hours, you can set in terms of days and hours. So you can set a scheduler and then you can add your action, right? Even that can be done. So that is how your basic setup looks like. And as you see, as soon as you create a criteria node, you are able to create one more criteria, and that's why the if then scenarios work here. So what would happen is, you would enter this process builder, and whenever a record is created, this particular criteria node will execute. If this particular criteria meets, it goes inside this particular section and executes the immediate actions. If it does not, it comes down here and takes a look at the second criteria, and so on and so forth, right? So that's how your process builder looks like. And another fancy thing is that you have, whenever you hover over one section, you can move them around, which means you can set the priority of your nodes. Let's say the third node needs to be in the first, you can just hover over it, click on it, and drag it to the top. So you can rearrange your criteria nodes also. All right, so that can be done. Let's take a look at what we have on the keynote. I think we already covered actions available. So actions available are these: create a record, update records, submit for approval, send notifications, send email, post to chatter, quick actions, Quip, flows, Apex, processes, and quick actions. And the best part about this particular video is we'll be doing one use case from each one of them. Ideally, what you see on process builders and process builder related videos are that you mostly will see that either you will see an example of creating a record or updating a record or maybe sending out an email. But in this video, we'll cover all of these scenarios, and we'll try to see how each one of these can be configured as an action. All right. Next thing is version control. Why is version control important, and why does that give a good facility to process builders? If I go back to process builders, and before that I talk about workflow rules, we have workflow rules that can be multiple for every object, but here ideally you would write one process builder for every object, right? So if you notice, you define an object and all your scenarios can be covered under single umbrella, right? Alongside that, how do you track your audit, or how do you track your history, or how do you track your versions of the process builder? Which is why you have a system for version control. Well, how does that help? Let's say I am good with this particular use case. Let me just simply say, let's just say create a record. I'll say create contact. I'll find the record type. I'm just showing this to you as an example to understand version control. So once I'm good with my action, I get the activate button coming up here, right? So let's say this is the process that I want to write and I activate it, right? So every process builder has to be activated, and if you notice, it says activate version, right? Which means if there's any other version that's available, it will automatically be deactivated and this one will be activated, and the deactivated version will be available in your version history. Let's see what that means. If I say confirm, this becomes activated and now it is in read-only mode. I cannot modify my process builder. Okay, now this can be used and it will trigger whenever the record is created on the account object, and if the customer channel is the type, it will create a contact record which will be of the last name Himanshu, right? If I want to try it, I can try it and it should work, no problems with that. But what I want to show you here is, let's say today the client has given us this requirement, right? And 6 months later they come back and they ask us that the last name should not be Himanshu, it should be Maheshwari, All right, so what do? I have to go in this process builder and modify it. Or let's say they give us this change as an enhancement, and they also give us one more requirement wherein they want us to add one more criteria node. So what do? I can click on the clone button and I can create a new version of this current process. I can either create a new process altogether, but since this is an upgradation or an enhancement of the current process, I'll say version of the current process, and with the same name I can save it. Alright, and once I click on save, this opens up my same process builder with the new version, and I have the activate button available. What will I do next? I will say create contact, and I'll change this. I'll modify this as per the new requirement. I'll say save, and then let's say there's one more requirement that says is my account customer prospect, let's say, right? And in that case, I want to check the criteria of account type equals prospect, and if this condition is met, what I want to do is I want to create a contact record with the last name Sense, right? And I want to save it. So maybe this is the new requirement that they gave us after 6 months after this particular system went live, right? Now I will go ahead and activate it, and this time it gives me the same message. I'll say confirm. Now what happens, if you notice, if I click on the view all processes button, you'll see that my first process is defined here. It is on the account object. It is based on the record change, and the current status is active. But if I click on this caret icon, what I notice is I have two versions, right? The older version is inactivated and can be deleted. The newer version is currently active. This is what version control is, right? If you have to go back and see what did I do in my previous version, you can open this particular version and see this is what we did. The create contact had Himanshu as the last name, right? And what was the enhancement that came in after 6 months from the client? This is the current version that came in. So this helps you understand the history. This helps you track and audit your processes, and you can even check what changes did you put up or did you add on to your process builder to satisfy the new situation or the new requirement, right? That is how version control works here. It's very helpful. You can have n number of inactive processes, but only one can be active at a time, and your active process cannot be deleted. Only inactive ones can be deleted. So you ask, how do I delete a process builder if I have to? You have to inactivate it and then click on the delete button here. Make sense? Cool. So that was about version control. Now we'll jump into use cases wherein we'll try to understand everything that we saw inside, right? So if you see, we'll create some nodes, we'll understand use cases for every immediate action. So if I were to, let's say, clone, and I'll just create another version of this process. So if you see, all of these actions will try to cover one use case for each one of them, okay? That's our next activity, and as we keep doing that, we'll understand the entire functionality of process builder, and we should be good to go. Cool. And this will also help us kind of get started for flow builder, because a lot of things are similar here and similar to flow builder, because you are creating actions and you are doing it through drag and drop, point and click. You're not really writing any code, right? So this will help us jumpstart our flow builder journey also. All right, so let's jump into the use cases. Okay, so let's begin with our use cases, and before we take a look at our first use case, let's get rid of this particular process builder that we created, right? So I'll just say view all processes, and I'll just say delete, and then I'll delete this particular version also, and then I'll go to the process and I'll deactivate it, and if I click on the view all processes, now I should be able to delete it, right? So this is how you go about deleting a process. Cool. So we are good. We don't have any process builders here, and let me just duplicate this and let's open any application. So I'll just open the sales app so that I have the records that I want. Cool. Let's take a look at our first use case. What's the first use case? It's for create a record, right? When an opportunity stage is close lost, right? Create a task for the opportunity owner. The task subject should be urgent task to work on. This should be assigned to the owner and should be completed within 7 days, right? So this is the ask. So what do we see as our process builder trigger object? The object trigger should be on the opportunity object, right? Because we are tracking what stage of the opportunity record would be based on which we'll take a decision. So I'll go ahead and create a new process builder, and what object would it be on? It would be on the opportunity object. So I'll say opportunity process for task creation, right? Always ensure that you give relevant description so that you come back to this particular process years later, you will still be able to understand what you did and why you did that, right? When should the process start? Right now we don't have anything for invoking another process or platform event message. We'll go with the record changes option, because whenever the opportunity record will change, we want to trigger this process builder, right? What's the object? It should be opportunity. So this is a keyword driven based search, so it's very easy to find out your object and you can choose it. Now what's the next thing that we want to figure out? When do you want to start the process? Only when the record is created or when it is created and updated, right? Let's take a look at our requirement. This says only when the opportunity stage is closed lost, right? So I don't believe that an opportunity will be created with the closed lost state. It would be created with a initial stage, right? And then it would go on to be updated to closed lost. So we definitely need the updated scenario, so I'll choose this one, right? What do we have in this advanced section here? This says, do you want to allow the process to evaluate the record multiple times in a single save operation, right? So this is for recursion. Why is this important? This is because you have the order of execution in Salesforce, right? What happens is, your before triggers run, your before flows run, and then your processes run, and then your commit happens. But when the workflow field updates or your process builder updates the record, your trigger runs again. And if in that case, your record meets the criteria again, maybe it might hit the process builder one more time, right? So the simple question asked here is whether you want your process to be evaluated multiple times. If in a single transaction, your process is, your process hits the workflow field update or maybe the trigger and it comes back to the process builder, do you want to recursively let the process builder execute or not? Well, in this case, you should be very cautious in terms of, evaluating this as yes, because recursion adds on to your time and resources taken for the transaction to run, and you might hit some governor limits also, right? So I'll leave this unchecked. I'll close the advanced option and I'll say save. So my object is defined, and what is my criteria to start the process? Whenever the record is created or edited, right? I'll say save. And now I can add my criteria. What should be my criteria? My criteria should simply say whether the opportunity stage is closed lost, right? Let's go in and ask, is opportunity closed lost? And here I have three options. Either you can choose simple conditions that we saw in our brief example, or you can even write a formula. If you're not comfortable with choosing conditions and you have a tricky formula, you can write it like a formula. Simply how you write your formulas or how you write your validation rules or how you build workflow rules, you can simply use a formula. And the third option is, if you don't have any criteria, you can simply execute the action and it will always execute, because you have not provided any entry criteria, right? In our case, we have one criteria, and that is the stage should be equal to closed lost, this one right here, right? And if you notice, as soon as I choose the field, I get this operator and the type immediately. What are the operators? These are the operators that are available: equal to, not equal to, whether it starts with a particular alphabet, whether it ends with a particular string, it contains a substring, whether it is changed or whether it is null, right? You have these options. And what are the type options you have? You can either directly refer to a value on the data type. So for example, this is pick list, right? If I say close date, this will automatically take the date operator. So see, the type is date and you have to enter a date value here, right? But apart from that, you have three different options. What are the options? Let's take a look at with the stage option here. So either I can go with a specific pick list value, but what if you want to compare this with some other value, that the stage name is equal to some other pick list value name? So in that case, you would go with a field reference. What does that let you do? It lets you find another field on the opportunity record and you can compare it. Simple as that, right? If you want to, let's say, compare with the opportunity type, which is again a pick list, if these two things are same, only then run the criteria. Does not make sense here as part of our example, but I'm just trying to help you understand what does field reference mean. Okay. What is the third option we have? We have a global constant. You can either define null. You can choose the null value here. You don't have to write it explicitly. You can use the global constant library and you can use that null value from here. And if you want to write a formula, let's say your stage name, or this is a stage name, but let's say your close date should be equal to today's date plus 7 days. So in that case, you would want to build a formula here, and the same formula section opens up. You can insert a field, you can insert functions, and you can insert operators. Cool. So for now, I'll go with the first option, which is pick list, and I want to choose the value which is closed lost. And if this particular condition is met, which means all of my conditions are met, I'll say save. Before clicking on save, there's another advanced button here. Let's take a look at this. So this says, do you want to execute the actions only when the specified changes are made to the record? Now this is again similar to what we have on workflow rules, the third entry criteria, right? To evaluate the rule only if it subsequently meets the condition requirements, right? So similarly here, what you have is, if you want to execute this actions only when the changes are made to the record, you would want to go ahead and say yes. What will this do? This will save you trips to the server or additional process builder executions, because you would only want to execute your process builder node whenever the stage name is equal to closed lost and it is a change that happens, it is not same. Which means, let's say you want to, your stage name is already closed lost, and you go ahead and update the stage name again with one more field. Should it run the process builder again? Ideally it will run it again, but if you keep this checked, it will not run it again, right? Because it's already closed lost. Why do you want to run the process again? Because the value is same, right? So this is what it says here. So if we take a look at this particular information icon, when you select yes, the actions are executed only if the record meets the criteria now, but the values that the record had immediately before it was saved did not meet the criteria, which means you have to ensure the value that it saved before was a different value and then it switched to closed lost value. Only then this will be executed, and which is good, right? We don't want it to execute every time. So I'll just say yes here and I'll say save. Cool. So this is my criteria node. What do I want to do? Let's take a look at the use case. My use case says I want to create a task. So to create a task, first of all, what action can I use? I can use the create a record action, right? I understand that I have put the use case with the name here, but yeah, this would be create a record action. So I'll say create a record and it will ask me, give me an action name. It needs a name for everything. Salesforce needs a name for everything. I'll say create task for owner. All right. What's the record type is nothing but the object that you want to create. So I'll say task. So I get the task. And as soon as I click on the task object, it tells me, it gives me all the mandatory fields that I have to set in order to create the record, which is beautiful, right? You don't have to figure out what fields do I have to enter mandatorily, which means it will give you the fields. If you want to add more fields, you can click on the add row and you can choose the field and you can populate it. Okay. What is our requirement? Our requirement says that the subject should be urgent task to work on. So I'll go back and here I don't see the subject, so I'll just add the subject field. So I have the subject field. I'll say it should be a string. I'll say update urgent task to work on. All right. And then it should be assigned to the opportunity owner. So the assigned to ID should be to whom? Should be a field reference. I don't have an ID, right? I don't have an 18-digit ID. How do I figure out who needs to be assigned to it? I will use the field reference and I'll say the current opportunities owner ID should be assigned it, right? So this is how your field reference works, right? I'll set the priority as normal. Okay, I'll set the priority as high as because I have mentioned the subject is urgent, and the status will be not started, right? Because no one has started it yet, it is just getting created. And this should be completed within 7 days, which means starting today, as soon as the task is created, it should only have 7 days to work on and it should be completed. So I'll say the due date for this particular object, the due date only should be, I can just put a formula here and I'll just say build a formula. I'll say today plus 7. That's my formula. I'll say use this formula and this should save fine. When I click on the save button, my immediate action is created. Cool. I don't have anything scheduled for later. I'll just leave it here and this says stop, which means as soon as the criteria is executed, it will stop here. Okay. I'll click on activate and this will activate my version. And now let's go ahead and test it. So what do I need to do? I need to create an opportunity, or rather update an opportunity to closed lost. That's all I need to do, right? So let's go to Jackson controls and I'll say closed and I'll say closed lost. I'll say save. So as soon as I do that, let's see if I have a task created. So I don't see any task created here, which means something went wrong, I believe. Let's take a look at the details section, and closed lost is the state, but I don't see any task created, which means something did not work as expected, right? Let's go back and try to debug it. So how do we debug it? First of all, we can open developer console. We'll say debug, show my current logs will be unchecked. And now let's try to execute it one more time. So if I were to go to an opportunity and let's say I take a look at my first op and here I go to details and I say stage should be equal to closed lost. Save. So once I save it, is there any task created? No task is created. Let's take a look at the developer console. I'll take a look at this particular debug log that came up, and this says that the opportunity process for task creation started and it kind of ended, right? I don't see anything here, nothing much. So if you look at the debug log, it says that it began here and it ended here, so nothing executed. Maybe something wrong with our scenario. So only when a record is created or edited is fine. If I go to this particular criteria node, this says that the stage name should be equal to closed lost, which is fine. And then the task that I'm creating here is this particular task. Let me do something. Let me get rid of the subject field for now. I think maybe there's an issue there. Let's click on this and let's remove the subject field. Status is not started, priority is high, and the assigned to ID is to the owner ID. Let me quickly take a look at the task list and see if there's something created or not. Oh, I see that there's a task is created, but it is not us. It is assigned to Himanshu. Yeah. So then why is this not showing up? Oh, I got it. So our functionality is working fine, but I was taking a look at the opportunity record and I could not find my task under the opportunity, but we have not associated the task to the opportunity, right? For that we need to use the related to field. If I take a look at the task records, I see there are two tasks created, one for Himanshu, another one is also for Himanshu, because I am currently the logged in user who is the owner of the opportunity. And if you notice that the subject is there, the due date is today's date plus 7, priority is high, and the status is not started, but if you see, it is not related to any record. So I have to relate it to a record in order to see it under the opportunity. So let's go ahead and do that also. So that's another field. I'll say related to ID should be which ID? It should be the opportunity ID. So I'll just say opportunity ID. Let's take a look at opportunity ID. Should be somewhere here, this one right here. Okay, I'll say choose. Now whenever the task is created, it will be assigned to the owner and it will also be related to the opportunity. Let's click on save. Let's go back and let's add the subject that was working fine. I just removed it unnecessarily, and I'll say urgent task to work on. All right, say save. And once this is ready, I'll say activate, confirm. And now let's go back and take a look at some other opportunity and try to modify it. So this is Burlington Textiles. There's no task assigned here, and this is currently closed one. I'll just mark it as closed lost. Let's try doing that. So this is now closed lost, and if you notice, I have a task coming up here, right? Urgent task to work on. If I open this task, it is related to the opportunity that we just triggered. It is created by the person who is the current logged in user. It is assigned to the opportunity owner with the right fields being populated. Cool. So this is how you are able to create a record through process builders. All right. So that was our first use case, successfully closed. All right. Let's take a look at our next use case. Let's take a look at our second use case, which is for email alerts. And the use case says every time a contact record is created, send an email to the parent account owner stating that a new contact has been set up in the system with contact email and phone information provided in the email, right? So this requires us to start off by creating an email template and then using that email template for the email alert and using that email alert inside our process builder, right? Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm on Salesforce. I'll say setup and I'll say email templates, right? And I'll go ahead and create a new template. I'll just use the text option for now. I'll say next. And here I want to give it a name, contact creation email template, right? And let's take a look at what the requirement is, that the email should be sent and it should have the contact email and the phone information, right? So it should have the contact fields. What fields? The contact email and the contact phone. So I'll just pick up the phone number also. right? So this should be fairly good for our email template. I'll click on save. So my email template is ready. What I need to do next is go to process builder and create a new process builder. Now this one should be for which object? This one should be for contact record. So I'll go ahead and create a new process builder and I'll create this one for contact. So I'll say continue in process builder, contact process for email alert, right? Again, record changes because whenever the contact record is created, I want to run this action, right? Whenever it is created. So I'll say add object, I'll choose contact, and this time I should be good with only when a record is created. I hope you understand why, right? I'll say save. And now under the criteria, do you think we have a criteria here, or do we want to send out this email every time a record is created? We want to send it every time. I don't have any entry criteria. So this is where the third option comes into help. No criteria, just execute. So I'll say send email to account owner, all right, or rather parent account owner. I'll say save. And now I'll say add action. And what should I be doing? I should be sending out an email alert. I'll choose email alert and I'll say notify account owner about the new contact. All right, I'll have to find an email alert, but have we created any email alert as of now? We have not. We have just created an email template, right? So to be able to create an email alert, we can click this button, or we can go to our setup tab and we can say email alerts, and I can create an email alert. All right, so this will open up the workflow screen, which is fine. I'll say continue, and here I can create a new email alert, right? Process builders directly use an email alert. All right, I'll say description, I'll just say email alert for contact creation. The unique name will be populated. This should be for the contact object. And what should be my email template? The email that I just created, the contact creation email template, right? And who should be the recipient? The recipient should be the account owner, right? So the account owner should be the recipient, correct? Or let me just see if I see related user, and if I can find someone. I have only last modified by, so I'll go ahead with the account owner record only. All right, and I have related contact owner, so there is only lead or contact owner. If I choose owner, I get the contact owner, and if I take a look at this option account owner right here, this should send the email to the account owner, right? If I want to send it additionally to other people's, I can add them. This acts like a BCC or a CC concept. 5 more email addresses can be added, and it will be received sent from the current user's email address. Okay, so I'm good with this email alert. I'll say save. And now I'll go back to my process builder and I'll find my email alert. This will not come here until I refresh it, because it will take a refresh to see the changes. I'll open my contact process builder and I'll say add action. I'll choose email alert. I'll say notify account owner, and here I'll choose the email alert that I just created. What's the name of my email alert? It is email alert for contact creation. So I'll start typing email alert. I don't see it yet. Why is that so? Let's see if I can. Yeah, it's coming up with the underscore. Obviously without the spaces it won't show up. So I'll choose this particular email alert and I'll say save. All right, my email alert has been configured and I'm good with this particular use case. I'll say activate and confirm. Now let's go ahead and create a contact with a parent account. All right, so when I click on the new button and I create a contact with a parent account, and let's before that check who's the account owner for a account we can use here. So for example, Salesforce makes sense. Who's the owner? Himanshu. And if I take a look at Himanshu's record, what is his email ID? It is Salesforce makes sense @gmail.com. All right, so let's go back to contacts. Let's click on the new button and let's say test contact from process builder, and I'll associate the Salesforce makes sense account. And do I need anything else? I don't think so. I think I need the phone and email, right, so that it can be shown to them. So I'll fill in this information here for the email. And what about the phone field? It is this number right here. Okay, let's click on save. So once I click on save, my contact record is created and I should be receiving an email on the registered email ID. Let's take a look whether I got it. So you see, I have an email that's coming up from this particular URL. That's an auto-generated URL, and I get the subject, hello there, a new contact is created. A new contact is set up with this particular email and this particular phone number. Feel free to connect to them, right? So this is sent to me on my email ID. All right. So this is how our email alert is working on record creation. And what did we do? We created an email template. We configured an email alert with that email template, and we use that email alert in our process builder. All right. Cool. Let's take a look at our next use case. Our next use case says send out a custom notification. So every time an account record is created whose organization is public, annual revenue is more than 50,000, send a custom notification to all the sales reps stating that a big account has registered in our system. So there are multiple keywords here. First of all, let me see if I have annual revenue in the account object. I might not have it, so I will just use some other parameter. Maybe industry is agriculture, right? Let's do that. Industry is agriculture. Let's say this is our requirement. All right. So every time a record is created, again, now what object should it be? It should be account object. Cool. Every time a record is created should be our entry criteria. And what should be our criteria nodes? That the organization is public and the industry is agriculture. So two criteria to enter the process builder action. And then what do we want to do? We want to notify to all the sales reps. Now how do we find all the sales reps? We can either use the concept of public groups, or we can use the concept of role, or we can see what can be done, right? We'll take a look at that option. And it has to be notified to them that a big account has registered in our system. All right. So similar to how we had a prerequisite in email alerts, we also have a prerequisite for notifications, that we need to create a custom notification type. So let's go ahead and do that. So here I'll say custom notifications, and I have under notification builder, I have this particular notification option. You don't have to do anything here. You just have to declare one notification type that you can use. So I'll say agriculture account notification, right? And you just have to define what channels should receive your notification. So I'll just put check for both. What will happen is this bell icon will ring, and this you'll get a notification here. That is what a custom notification is, right? You'll get it on the bell icon here. So I've created a notification type, and it clearly says that, you know, you can send the notifications using process builder or flows. Right now we'll go to process builder. And which object is this? Let's take a look at which object is this. This is an account object, right? So I'll say new, continue in process builder, notify sales reps for account agriculture. Just whatever is very close to my requirement. And again, whenever a record changes, I'll say save. What should be my object? It should be account, and it should only be when a record is created. That's my object node. What should be my criteria? Is account, agriculture, and public. There are two criteria, right? And here I'll say conditions are met. Let's take a look at the criteria. Organization is public. So let's take a look at the first field, that's organization. So if I see organization, I don't see anything. What about industry? I have industry here. I'll say choose, and industry equal to agriculture, and organization there should be one field that's not really organization, but we do have the annual revenue field. So I'll just choose this particular field, and I'll say greater than currency 50,000, right? That's the second condition. And let's say I also want to choose that condition where the organization is public, right? So ownership, I think that field is ownership. Let's take a look at ownership. Yeah, ownership is equal to public. I'll choose public here. So let's say we have these three conditions all together. Only when these three criteria meet is when I want to notify my sales reps. So I'll say save, and here I want to add an action. Now take a look at this particular action type and think which option should I use. I should use the send custom notification. So I'll choose the send custom notification. I'll give it a name, notify sales reps, right? And it is all sales reps. So I'll say notify all sales reps. What is the notification type? You see, since we created a custom notification, I'm getting the name here, and here you have to fill in three information. Three things are who should be the recipient type, what should be the title of the notification, and what should be the body. So I'll say we won a big account take a look at it here, and the title should be yay. I mean, just celebrating, right? If you want to add some fields similar to how we did on the email template, you can use the merge field option and you can use the field. So what I'll do is, let's say we want a big account with revenue close to, and I'll insert the revenue information of the account, right? I'll just insert this field and it will automatically come up here like this. That's the mapping field that has come up. I'll say yay. This account name has arrived in our ecosystem. This is my title and this is my body. All right, I'm just putting up the dynamic name here and the revenue in the body section. All right, and what should be the target object? Target object should be the object that started the process, and it will be the account object. There's only one option. Here, the important thing is who should be the recipient. Now, if you want to send it to a specific person, you can use the user option. You can say user field from a record. So I can say either the owner or maybe some field, owner created by, last modified by, whoever modified it last, I can do that. What about the other option? If I want to find a specific user, I can find that user. So let's say security user, integration user. I can set it to a specific user. If I want to send it to the current user who is currently logged in, they can also get it. Right? That's the first option. If you want to assign it to a queue, you can assign it to a queue. If you have a queue configured, you can search the queue. Or else, if you want to assign it to an owner, maybe the account owner, record, or some other master record owner, or maybe whoever modified the record, his owner. So you can do that. All right. So if I go to owner ID and I find the manager, maybe I can do that also, right? If I can send it to the owner's manager, the record owner's manager. But here we want to send it to all the people who are part of the sales team. So I can create a group and add all the sales representatives in there and notify them. Cool. So to do that, I'll have to go back. I'll create a public group. I'll say new. I'll say sales reps. And here who should be added? Let's say I want to add all the people who have the role of sales, Eastern sales, director from direct sales, SVP sales, Western sales, maybe all the sales people, right? International VP sales, North American sales. So anyone who has the role among these sales are basically your sales representatives, right? So I want to add anyone who has this particular role, and I'll say save. So my public group is created, but I don't think there are any users in this public group. So I'll say user, I'll go to the user and I'll assign myself a role. I currently have the Western sales team role, which should be fine. So let's take a look at the public group, and is the Western sales team added? Western sales team is also part of this particular public group, which means if I add this particular public group here, I should be able to, let's say user for now. I'll just try to save the record and then modify it. Okay, I'll just say choose, save. I'm just saving it so that I can refresh, because the public group won't show up until I refresh. So I'll say notify sales rep for account agriculture. I'll go to the notify all sales rep, and now I'll choose the public group, and I'll choose the public group which is sales reps, right? I'll choose this one and I'll say activate. All right, if I take a look at my action, it did not get saved because I did not click on the save button here. Let's click on clone. I'll say save, create a new version, and I'll just update it one more time. Because I did not click the save button here and I activated directly, this bit did not get saved. So I'll say sales reps and I'll say save here, and now I'll activate it. All right, so that's my use case. Let's now test it. What's my criteria? I have to create an account record. And when I do that, I should ensure that the industry ownership is public, industry is agriculture, and revenue is more than 50,000. So I'll say 55,000. All right. And here I just put a name, new company from process builder. I'll put the rating as hot and I'll say save. So as soon as I do that, you see I get a notification on my notification bar. And what is it? Before that, let me show you something. All right, let's go to the notification, and you see it says yay, new company PB. This is the name of the company that I put as a mapping, has arrived in our ecosystem. We want a big account with revenue close to 55,000. This is the revenue that's being taken from the record. And it says, take a look at it here. Now, the beauty of notifications is, let's say you are on the system and working on this particular opportunity, and you then got this notification. Without anything to be done, you can click on the notification and you'll land on the record that triggered it. Right? So you can take a look at the record. That's why it says take a look at it here. I just wanted to show you that, notifications have the record tied up automatically. You can just click on the record and you can open the record. That's why you had that last thing, the target object. This section right here. The account object that started the process should be the target object and your record is notified. Alright, so that was your use case for sending out custom notifications. Let's take a look at the next use case. Alright, so our next use case is posting to chatter, right? Even this is something that can be done by process builders. Let's take a look at the use case. When opportunity stage is closed won and revenue is greater than $100,000, send a post to chatter either to the person or a chatter group. We'll see who to send it to, congratulating everyone for the new deal that's won, right? So let's take a look at our process builder. Before going there, let's see what is the object in concern. It is opportunity. What's the criteria? The stage is closed won and revenue is greater than 100K. What's the action? Posting to chatter, right? Let's go back and now let's go to process builder. Let's go back to all processes. And here if we notice, we already have a process builder for opportunity for which we created regarding the task creation requirement, right? Let's click on this and let's try to figure out how to accommodate multiple requirements here, right? Ideally, the process builder for every object should be one. What I'll do is I'll say clone and I'll create a new version because this is a new requirement, right? I'll say clone and now I can add my criteria here. Before that, I have to check what's the requirement. It says that the stage is closed won and revenue is greater than 100K, right? And if I take a look at the opportunity, whenever the record is created or updated, I can run this process builder, which means this should evaluate and it will come here. And I'll say is rev more than 100K and closed won, right? This is my scenario. I have two criteria. First one is revenue. I don't see any revenue field here, so let's see opportunity. Amount, maybe amount is a field. Yes, amount is a field. I'll say amount equals, it should be greater than 100,000, so 100,000, right? This should be the amount and the stage should be closed won, right? These are the two values I need. I'll click on save. Alright, what is the immediate action? I want to post to chatter. So take a look and see, do we have the post to chatter option available? Yes, we do. I'll say post to chatter and I'll say congratulate everyone. Alright, and I'll say post to either a user, either a group, or to this record. So you can either post to chatter to that particular user who's currently in concern, or maybe you can find a user, or you can even do it for a chatter group. You can create a chatter group, or you can choose this record and you can just add a message, right? I'll say user, and for now, just for this to work, I'll say search for a user and I'll search my user. Okay, and I'll just post it to this particular user, which is me, so that I get the message. I'll say congratulations on winning this beautiful deal. Great job. Alright, and if I want to, I can add the amount on winning this beautiful deal of, and I can just put my field here. So I'll just say amount. So this will give me the exact amount that the team has won, right? And I'll say save. Alright, and I can just now activate it when I'm good. Let's click on activate and confirm. Alright, and now I can go back and I can update my opportunity to close one, and let's see what happens. So if I go to this particular Jackson Controls opportunity and I say details, and here the amount should be more than 100K and the stage should be closed one. So if I do these two things and click on save, I should get a chatter notification. So if I go to my chatter tab here, so you see, I get this particular post, but I don't see my chatter post, right? Let's click on latest activity. I don't see the chatter activity here. Why is that so? Let's take a look. Let's go back to the process builder. Let's understand what's happening. So whenever the opportunity is created or edited, and then this is the first criteria that comes up, right? So is opportunity closed lost? This will be false, so it should come up here, and here it should check whether the opportunity amount is greater than 100K and the stage name equals closed one. If these two things work fine, then it will congratulate the user on winning this beautiful deal. So if I go back and try to figure out where is my chatter, let's click on the chatter application. And let's see if I see it here. So if I go to chatter, so you see, I have the chatter information coming in 1 minute ago. Congratulations on winning this beautiful deal of 150,000 records. Why did I not see it again on the opportunity? Because the chatter record has not been associated to the opportunity, right? That's why it will be on the chatter level. So I came to the chatter application and I saw that I have a post that says congratulations on winning. I can just write a comment, or someone else who has access to my chatter information can congratulate me or the entire team. Alright, so this is how you would post to chatter. Cool. So that was our post to chatter use case. Let's take a look at the next one, which is update records. So the use case is, if the lead source is partner referral and industry is chemicals, update the lead rating to hot. Now this is on the lead object. So if I go back and open leads, so it says that the source should be partner referral. So if I go to the lead source, this should be partner referral, and the industry should be chemicals. Where is the industry field? Industry field is here, it should be chemicals. If these two are the case, then we'll update the same lead record and we'll update the lead rating. Where is the lead rating? The lead rating should be set to hot. Do we have a rating? Yes, this should be set to hot automatically. Alright, so what we are trying to do is, based on the criteria, based on these identifiers, we want to update the same record and update the rating field. What we have done earlier is we have created a new record, but here we want to update the same record, right? I'll go to process builders and I'll go back to all processes and I'll click on the new button. This time it should be for lead. So lead rating update process. Here again, whenever the record changes, and I'll say save, and this time I'll add the object as lead. Now, whenever a record is created or edited, what do you want? We want it to be updated and created both, because you might change the industry field in the middle of the record, right? You might do it in the middle of the process. I'll say save and I'll add my criteria. Is it chemical based? Industry. I'll just put this name, and here what should be my criteria? That the industry is equal to chemicals. What was my other condition? My other condition was that the lead source is partner referral. So source equals partner referral. These two conditions meet, I'll say save. What do I want to do? I want to update the record. So if I take a look at this particular options, I have update records options available. I'll say update the lead record. Now if you notice, when I click on this record type option, I get two options, whether you want to update the same record that started it or you want to update a record that's related to the lead. So you can update the same record and you can update some related records. So if you see, I can update any attachment, any contact request. So any object that is associated, be it with a lookup or be it with a master detail, it will be able to update the related object also. Right now we want to update the same record that started the process, and here I can even filter out by adding more criteria. Right, but I don't want to do that because I have already set the criteria here that these two are the values. If they match, then I want to come inside and I want to add the action update records, and here I want to say update lead rating. I'll choose the same record that started my process and I'll say simply find the rating field and update the value to hot. Alright, and I'll click on save. So that should suffice and that should be good enough. I'll say activate, confirm. And once this is activated, I'll go back here and I'll just get rid of the rating field, and these two are set to the values that we want. I'll say save, and rating should automatically be updated as hot. So you see, this is automatically updated. Alright, so that's how you can update the records. Remember, you can update the same record, you can update the related records also. Alright, so that was our update records use case. Let's take a look at the next use case. So in this use case, we'll want to submit the record for approval, right? What's the use case? It says if an opportunity line item has a sales price that's greater than $5,000, submit the line item for approval on behalf of the opportunity owner, and the record should be sent to the account owner for approval, right? So every opportunity has an account and there is an account owner. So we want to send this record for approval based on this particular criteria that the sales price for the opportunity line item is greater than $5,000. Alright, so to set this up, what we want to do first is create an approval process and then use that approval process in our process builder, right? So the prerequisite here is to create a approval process. So let's go ahead and go to setup. I'll just close these extra tabs and I'll say approval process. I'll say create a new one for which object? It should be the opportunity line item, right? Let's see if we have that option here. I have just the opportunity here. Let's see if I can use opportunity line item. I don't see the opportunity line item here, which means I am not allowed to create an approval process for this particular record. So instead, do I have a quote line item? Let's see if I have a quote line item. I don't have a quote line item also. Let's take a look at why is that so. Opportunity line item, approval process, Salesforce. So looks like we cannot create an approval process for the opportunity line item, but there's another way to do it. That's okay. Let's do something. Let's use some other object for now. So I'll use the opportunity object itself and I'll send the record for opportunity. for approval. Okay, I'll just use the opportunity object and I'll create a new one. I'll say use the standard setup wizard. I'll say opportunity approval. All right, so for opportunity line item we cannot create approval processes, so I'm just using another object for this demo. Okay, so use this approval process if the following criteria are met or the formula evaluates to true. What is our criteria? Our criteria is, let's say we modify this criteria if the opportunity has a amount that's greater than $50,000, we'll submit the line item for approval. Or actually we'll submit the opportunity for approval. All right, let's go back, and now what should be our criteria? Our criteria is amount is greater than 50,000, right? I'll say next. So this approval process will only trigger when this particular criteria is met. What is the next thing we want to set? Select the field used for automatic approval routing. How would you define the next approver? It would be either by manager, or you don't want to do it, you can just leave it as none, which means if the owner is not available and you want this to be delegated, the manager can take it up, right? So you can do that, or else you can also use the approver field on the opportunity owner. You can just mark it as checked if you want. Okay, and what about the record editability? Who should be able to edit the records when the record is sent for approval and it is not yet approved or rejected? Let's say we don't want anyone else except for the administrator, so we can choose the first option. Or if you want the current assigned approver who's looking at the record, if they should be able to edit the record, you can choose the second option here. All right, no other profile, no other persona can edit the record except for the administrator and or the currently assigned approver. All right, so I'll just say next. Now what should be the approval assignment template? I'll just choose a random template. Let's see, I'll just say new customer email. I'll just choose the random template. Okay, we can create a template and associate it. And here what are the fields that you want the approver to see when he's trying to approve or reject it? So what's important? The important part is the name, the close date, what's the amount, and maybe probably the main competitors, or rather the lead source. Okay, I'll just take these 4 or 5 fields, should be fine. And down below it says display the approval history information in addition to the field selected above. You can either display the history, you can keep it checked if you want to display the history, or you can also take a look at the security, whether you want this particular approver to approve it within the Salesforce application or outside also. So if you want them to log into Salesforce and come here and approve reject it, choose the first option, or if you want them to be able to do it from a remote device, you can choose the second option. All right, I'll go with the first one for now, and if you see, you have an example here that shows you how it would look like. So it will say approve or reject the request. This is in classic, but it would look like this. So your first screen would show all the fields that there are. You can just click on the approve and reject, and you can add your comments. If you check the history section here, if you want to see the history, then you can take a look at the history, which is this section right here. You know, someone approved it, someone submitted it, so you can see the history here. And then lastly, if you want them to do it from the mobile or some external wireless device, they should be able to do it if you choose this option right here. Okay, I'll say click on next. And now who should be the submitter? So the submitter can either be the person who's the actual owner of the record, or if you want someone else to be able to submit the record, you can choose a role, you can choose a user, you can choose a partner user, you can choose any option that's available. Okay, so even your sales reps can, you know, do it. Maybe your opportunity owner can do it. The record creator can do it. So you can choose any of the options. So right now we want to do this on behalf of the opportunity owner. So I'll just say opportunity owner here. Okay, I don't have any other option that I want to choose. And here, if you see, there is a submit for approval button that has to be added to the page layout so that the owner can manually click on it. So once they click on it, they should be able to submit for approval. So for that button to be visible on the page layout, this particular setting is set to check. Okay, and then lastly, allow submitters to recall their request. So let's say I sent my request for approval and I want to recall it. Maybe I made some mistake and I did not have to send it. I can just say allow submitters to recall. They can, you know, revert their approval submission, right? But here none of this matters because we'll be automating it through the process builder. So the owner won't be manually doing it, right? I'll just say click on save, and that creates my approval process. And then I would want to create a step, right? So I'll do this later. Take me to the approval detail page to review what I've just created. If you want to see the list of approval processes, you can click on this option. And if you want to create an approval step, you can go with this particular option. Okay, so you can create some steps for yourself. I'll say cancel for now, and I can take a look at my approval process. So it says it is an opportunity approval. It is currently not active. I can just mark it as active. I can just edit this particular section, or I can edit the entry criteria. I can edit the approver field. I can see the initial submitters. So all of the sections that we currently covered, we can go to them individually and edit it. Okay. Next, what you want to do is you have initial submission. In your standard approval process has these 3-4 things, right? Your initial submission would basically lock your record. No one will be edited. No one will be able to edit it. But if you want to do something extra apart from that, you can either do one of these: task, email alert, field update, right? And then you have the final approval. If it is approved, what do you want to do? So your record will be logged, but you want to let's say you want to send an email alert, you want to do a field update, you can do that. Same is for rejection. Let's say if your record is rejected, you can do the same things here also. And finally, the recall actions. Let's say you want to recall your submission for approval, you can do things along with that also. Same 4 options that are available in workflows are also available here, right? And if you want to do something that's common to different actions, you can use the add existing button to choose the email alert or the field update that you have done in some other place. Okay, and you can define an approval step by adding an approval step here. So I'll just say first level, and step number would be 1. I'll say next. So here I'll say all records should enter this step. So this is helpful when you have scenarios wherein slabs are there. For example, if the record has a revenue wherein the amount is between 5,000 to 50,000, this record should be approved by the opportunity owner's manager. But if it is more than 50,000 and it is less than 5 million, then it should be approved by the opportunity owner's manager. And then if that person approves it, you want the opportunity owner's manager's manager to also approve it, right? So kind of a hierarchy based system based on the grade or the slab that you're currently in. You want multiple approvals. In that case, this approval step comes in handy. All right, I'll just skip this for now because this is not the thing that we are looking at right now. And I'll just say click on edit. This is fine. Let me see if I can activate it. Let's go ahead and say I have to define one approval step, only then it will let me. So I'll say step 1, say next, and here all the records should enter this step, or enter this step if the following criteria are met. Okay, or else approve the record. So what we did was our approval process had an initial trigger, right? We can add the same trigger here. We can say that the opportunity amount should be greater than $50,000, right? If that's the case, only then go inside this particular approval scenario, or else automatically approve it. Okay, you can even choose to reject it, but I'll just say automatically approve whatever is less than 50,000, and whatever is more than 50,000 gets a chance to whether be approved or rejected. Okay, I'll say click on next. And here let the submitter choose the approver manually, or it can automatically be assigned. So what do I want to do? I want to automatically assign related user, and I want to assign it to the opportunity owner, right? I'll just say assign it to the opportunity owner and say save. Cool. And apart from that, we have created an approval step. You can specify workflow actions, but I don't want to do this for now. I'll just say I'll do this later, and I'll say go. So this is basically, if you have a approval, if you have a rejection, you can create a action according to it. If you want to do it, it lets you do it from here for a rejection option or a approval action, right? I'll just say I'll do this later, and I'll say go. So my approval step is now defined, which says that if the opportunity amount is greater than 50,000, only then go into the approval situation, or else approve it automatically. And now I have the activate button. I'll say activate. I'll say okay. So my approval process is ready, but I want to use this in a process builder, right? So let's go to process builder, and let's see how we can leverage this particular approval process. So I'll say process builder, and here for which object, it should be for the opportunity, right? So I'll just go into the opportunity record. I'll say clone. I'll create a new version, and this time what do I want to do? If the amount is greater than 50,000, only then I want to send it. So I put the criteria at 2 different places, and I'll be putting it here also. But what you can do is you can just put it here, and you can create your approval process and call it from here. Okay, you don't have to put the criteria at multiple places. That is also something that can be done. So I'll say is revenue greater than 50K. All right, condition would be amount greater than 50,000, right? If this condition meets, I'll say add action. And what should be the action type? If you see submit for approval option is available, I'll say submitted for approval. Object should be opportunity. What is the approval process? I want to select a specific one, and here I have the opportunity approval, right? I'll just say skip the entry criteria for this approval process. If I don't want it, I can just leave it as is. Then the entry criteria will be evaluated here also. Okay, so that's the second level check. We can skip it or we can keep it, because both ways we are checking the 50K check on the opportunity process builder also and on the approval process also. And who should be the submitter? I'll just say user field from a record. Which user? The opportunity owner should be the submitter, because we want to do it on behalf of the opportunity owner, right? That's the ask. So I'll just say should it be user ID or should it just be ID? Let's see. Yeah, this should be user ID. I'll say choose. I'll say please this submission has come from the process builder automation. Okay, I'll say save. And once I'm good with this, I'll click on activate. Now let's click on activate, and this should activate my process builder. Once I'm good with it, I'll go back here. I'll go to an opportunity. Let's go back to the sales application, and here on the opportunity, let's update our opportunity to something that's more than 50K. Okay, so I'll say details, and if I save and I click on save, so I get the custom notification, and this is saying Himanshu Maheshwari is requesting approval for opportunity. All right, so if I click on this record, you'll see that there's an approval request that has been automatically created, and it has the comment that says this submission has come from the process builder automation, and it is giving me all the 5 fields that I wanted to put, and it lets me approve, reject or reassign. If I want to reassign to someone else, I can do that, or I can go ahead and approve it with adding some comments, or I can even go ahead and reject it by adding some comments. That's standard functionality of the approval process. But you see how you were able to automate your approval process submission without having to click it manually from the user screen. So if I go to the opportunity, and if I open this opportunity, I see that there should be a submit for approval button that should come up on the page, but it's not here. It can be added, but you would have to click it on it manually. But now the process builder, what it does is it takes a look at the amount and accordingly decides whether to submit it for approval or automatically approve it. All right, so that's how you can submit records for approval. That was our use case. Let's take a look at the next use case, flows. So flows is the exciting one that I believe most of you would be interested in, but believe me, once you are good with process builders, that will give you a good head start with flows, because more or less you'll understand how to automate things. In this particular use case, what we want to do is we want to create a process builder, and as soon as an opportunity is closed one, we want to launch a survey flow for the person who updated it. Okay, so we want to create a flow, and that would be a screen flow. I know we have not covered flows as of now, but just let's take an example and see. As soon as an opportunity is closed, we want to show a screen, and we just want to thank the opportunity owner or record creator or whoever modified it, and say that thank you, you can add your comments, and we can finish the flow. Okay, that's the use case. Let's take a look at how this can be done. So for this, I'll again go to process builder, and before going to process builder, what is our prerequisite? Our prerequisite is we want to create a flow. So I'll go to flows. All right, I'll go to flows, and here I'll choose new flow. And here there should be several options, but I want to create a screen flow because I want to get some input from the end user. So I'll say create a screen flow, and this opens up the flow screen. All right, don't worry about how things look like. I'll just briefly show it to you. We'll discuss flow builder as a separate course, as a separate video altogether. We'll cover everything there. All right, so let's click on add element. I'll add a screen here, and I'll just say flow label should be thank you for participating. The API name should come automatically, and here in the body, what I can do is I can push in some input components. All right, so I can just put something like a text field. So I'll just put up a display text first of all, and I'll say thank you, and inside this particular text I want to show congratulations on winning the opportunity, successfully closed. So this is the text I want to show, and I can just add a text field here for the user to enter your thoughts here. Alright, the default value, there won't be any default value, and I'll just say done. If I click on this footer section, I'll say configure the footer. I want to hide the previous screen, I want to hide the pause screen, and I just want to show a custom label submit survey. Alright, that's my custom label. This would be here, and I'll say done. Alright, that's all I want to have here. I'll say save, and I'll say thank you survey, and save this flow. Once the flow is saved, I'll say activate so that I can use it at places. And I have not done any kind of DML here, any kind of saving here. I just want to show that, you know, you can launch a flow from a process builder. Let's see that. So now I want to go to process builder, and here I want to create another node. So I'll just say clone, and I'll say save, and this time I'll create one more node, and that node will be is opportunity closed one. I believe we have different criterias for okay, let's see what happens. So I'll say is opportunity closed one, and here I'll say stage name stage equals closed one, right? If that's the case, I want to launch a flow. So if I say save and I go to the immediate action option, do I have flows option? I do. So I'll say flows, and here I'll say launch survey. And what's the flow I want to launch? I want to search for thank you survey. So I don't see the flow here. Why is that so? Thank you survey is created. Maybe I want to refresh it. Okay, this should come with, let's see why I don't see. Only active auto launched flows can be launched by a process. Processes can launch only active flows that don't contain screens. Oh shoot. So we cannot launch a survey flow from the process builder, because it's saying only active auto launched flows can be launched by a process. They can only launch active flows that don't contain screens, which means our flow won't be launched because it has a screen on it. Okay, so what we can do is we can kind of do some level of update or some sort of calculation on our flow, and let that happen on the flow, and we can demonstrate it. So our use case goes void because I cannot show a survey flow. But what instead we can do is we can, whenever the opportunity is closed one, I'll just update opportunity rating to cold. All right, let's do that. I'll just update the opportunity rating to cold. All right, and that is something we'll do via the flow. So I'll just go here and I'll just get rid of this particular screen, or rather I'll get rid of this flow because this is a screen flow and I want to create a auto launched flow. So let's go back, let's go to flow builder, and where is our flow? So thank you survey, I'll say delete view details and versions. I'll delete it. Okay, I'll just get rid of this flow. So we learned a new thing that from process builder, the flows that you get should only be auto launched. You cannot have a screen flow. So I'll say new flow and I'll choose a auto launched flow, this one right here. So this is launched when invoked by Apex processes REST API and it runs in the background. This is what we want to choose. Okay, so here I'll say auto launched flow and I want to do some sort of action, right? So I want to say, let's say I want to go to the opportunity record. I don't have any, I want to create a new opportunity. Is it? That's just an action. I don't want to do that. Let's try to. Let's create a task, or let's go to core action, email alert. If I go to core actions, I have these options. Let's go to category and let's say if I want to create a task. So I'll say just create a new task. Say follow up with customer. All right, and let's say the assign to ID should be, so I've not assigned it to anyone, but let's say I want to include the due date. So instead of this, let's see if I can, what happens if I go to the process builder and choose this particular flow. It lets me set the values, right? So let's do something. Let's go here and I'll say due date, status, and subject are the three things I want. I'll say done and I'll just say save. Okay, create task on opportunity closure. I'm just trying out a thing. Let's see if it works and then I'll explain you. Okay, so once this flow is ready, I'll say activate. So it says follow up with customer. What does it do? It creates a task and it assigns it to no one right now. I just want to see what happens if, because this is a required ID, I want to call it from the process builder, and then I also want to include 3 fields, which is subject, status and due date. Okay, so that's done. I'll go back to the process builder and here I'll say save, and I'll just refresh my screen so that I can get my new flow. All right, so if I refresh and I go to the opportunity process builder and I go to my survey flow, I'll say delete, confirm, and I want to create a new action, and this time I want to choose a flow, and this flow should be my create task on opportunity closure flow, right? And I just say create opportunity. All right, so I'll just say create task and I'll say save. So this does not take any input parameters, which means it will behave based on whatever we have defined here, right? So here I've just put no one as assigned, which will ideally fail, and that should not be the case. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'll just say save, and here let me assign it to someone. Resource variable assigned to ID. I'm just creating a variable of record type. This is available for input, and this will be from the opportunity object. Say done, and I'll just say assign to ID. So what I've done is I've created a so I want to assign it to a owner, right? So instead of assign to ID, I have to choose assign to ID dot owner ID, right? I'll assign it to the opportunity owner. I'll say done, and I'll say save as save, activate it. So this time I'm assigning my case to the opportunity owner. So let's go back to our process builder and refresh our screen. Let's see if we get the assign to ID as an input parameter now, because we have created a variable, right? Let's click on the create opportunity button, and here now if you see, we can set some flow variables because we have created an input field. So if you see, assign to ID is coming here, and I can put a field reference saying this should be the opportunity record that created the process, and I want to set this particular opportunity. All right, can I add more variables? It's the same variable because I've just created one input variable. All right, so this will map the current opportunity to the assigned to ID, and then the field will come up here and it will set as the opportunity dot owner ID, and this particular task will be assigned to the owner. All right, I think this will now make sense. Let's click on done. And now if you also want to add due dates and status from your process builder, you can create new resources and you can map it there. So let's say if I want to do something like this, new variable, I'll say due date, the return type should be date, and I'll just say available for input and done. Okay, I'll say done, and I'll say save as and save, and once it is saved, I'll say activate. Okay, and now I can go back to my process builder. I'll say save, and if I want to modify it and I want to add a row, I'll have to refresh it one more time. I can go down to this particular one and I can say due date should be a date which should equal to formula, and that formula would be today plus 3 days, let's say. Okay, I'll say save. Okay, I have to build the formula and say use this formula and then say save. All right, so good with this use case. I'll say activate, and once I activate it, I should be able to test it out. Let's go to an opportunity, and what is our entry criteria? It is closed one, right? So I'll just go to an opportunity. I'll say this one is closed lost, so sorry. I'll say all opportunities. I'll go to Dickinson mobile generators. I'll say closed, select closed stage, and I'll say closed lost. Why did I set it as closed lost? Yeah, it is closed one, sorry, closed one. I'll say save. Okay, so once I click on save, I am getting an error that says opportunity process for task creation process failed, which means something went wrong. So we'll have to debug it. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. Before debugging there, let's try to debug it here. So if I try to debug it here, let's click on the debug button here, and I can run it based on an opportunity. So if I choose Dickinson record here and I say run, so let's see what happens. So this runs with an error and it says required fields are missing. The status field is missing, right? Because that's a mandatory field and we did not populate it. So I'll say status, new resource, variable, status var, set it as string, and I'll just say available for input. All right, and the same thing I'll do for the subject. Is not a mandatory field, so we should be fine. And I'll just say done, and I'll just say save as, save. And this time if I try to debug again and I use the Dickinson mobile generator, this still fails, and this time it says, okay, no, it's saying the same thing. I'll say activate. It shows me the debug again screen. Let me refresh and let's try to debug it now. So I'll choose the Dickinson option, say run. It failed because I've not put any value, right? So instead of doing that, if I go to my process builder and I go to this create opportunity and I clone it, say save, I should be able to add some dummy values here, and then it should work. So I'll say create due date, and then here status, or what was it? I don't see the field coming up here, not sure why. Let's go back. Oh, this is not activated. I have to activate it. This is now activated. Refresh. So you see, this is how debugging works. You have to figure out what's the issue. You'll have to try solving it. You'll have to test it, and once testing works, that's when you can say that you're good. So status bar is coming up now, and I'll just say status is not started. All right, and I'll just say save. This is supposed to be a pick list field, but that's okay. I'll activate my process now. I'll say activate. I'll go back to Dickinson, and I'll try to now close my opportunity and say save. So this time my stage is completed, but what we want to see is whether a task is created, right? So I want to go to tasks, and here if I take a look at the latest task, this says that the task is not started. The due date is today's date plus 3 date, and the priority is normal. So this is the task that's automatically created. There's no subject because we did not set the subject field, but our primary purpose was to see how you can associate, or rather invoke, a flow from process builder. What did we learn? We learned that we can only launch auto launched flows from the process builder. We cannot launch any survey flow or anything that has user input. We cannot do that, right? The next thing we learned is if we want to assign any parameters, we have to create resources on the flow side, make them available for input, and then we can add the rows and set the flow variables from wherever we invoke it. All right, and once these two things are done and all the required fields that you want to use to create a record or update a record are populated, you should be good to complete that automation. All right, so this is how we have invoked a flow from a process builder. Cool, nice. Let's take a look at the next use case. All right, so our next use case is writing an Apex class and calling it from the process builder, right? So what's the use case here for Apex? It says as soon as an opportunity is created, check the create task flag on the record. If the flag is set to true, create a task record for the opportunity owner's manager to call the associated person and inquire about the requirement. And this task should be done within 2 days of the opportunity creation, right? So this is our due date, that it should be done within 2 days of the creation of the opportunity. It should be assigned to the current opportunity owner's manager, and we need to create a task record. Even this can be done through process builder, but just for the sake of this example, I'll be writing this stuff on Apex and showing you how to call this particular method from process builders, right? So what would be the object for the process builder? It would be opportunity, and it will only run when the record is created, right? And we'll check this particular flag on the record as our entry criteria. So let's go ahead. Let's go to process builder first. And here I'll use the opportunity process that we used earlier, and I'll just add one more node. I'll say clone. I'll say save. Right? I'll add a criteria. I'll say is flag true. And before that, I'll have to create a flag, right? So let's do something. Let's duplicate this tab and let's go to opportunity. Let's create a new field. This will be a boolean or a checkbox. Create task. By default, this will be unchecked. Say next. I'll add it to the opportunity layout and say save. All right. So our field is there. Now let's go back to our process builder, and is flag true. Let's cancel this out and let's refresh. Our field will come up now. Let's go to opportunity process and let's add the criteria now. Is flag set? Which flag? On the opportunity create task flag. This one, right? Choose equals true. That's my entry criteria. If that happens, I want to create an action that basically calls Apex. So you see Apex is an option here, and when I choose Apex, it asks me for a name. Say call my Apex code to create task. All right, and here it tries to find an Apex class, right? How do we find an Apex class here? So only specific classes with methods can come up here, and those must have an invocable method. Now invocable method is an annotation that we need to write on our methods so that the particular class method is visible to the process builder. All right, so let's go ahead and write an Apex class first and come back here later. Let me just leave this as is. Let's go to the developer console. Let's create a new class. I'll call it opportunity process handler, right? And here I'll define a method. All right, I'll just save this. So this is a normal Apex class that I've created, but even though I created, I'll not be able to see it on my process builder, right? Let me refresh this and let me try to refresh and show it to you. So if I go inside my process builder and I take a look at this particular action and I try to find out my class, which is opportunity, it does not show up, right? So for this to be visible, I have to add a annotation to my method, and this is nothing but invocable method. All right, and when I do that, this gets saved successfully, and now I can refresh it one more time and mostly my class should come up now. Let's see. So you see opportunity process handler is coming up here and I'm able to choose it. All right, now what happens is with invocable methods, we only have an option to pass a list of ID or list of primitive data types to the method. We cannot just send anything and everything here. All right, so let's say op ID and let's save it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this got saved here, and now if I go back to my method and refresh it one more time, let's add Apex, and this time the same method opportunity process handler, right? And you see I'm able to set a Apex variable. To just justify what I said, let's see invocable method parameters. Let's take a look at this, right? So invocable method annotation, Apex developer guide. So you see the only option is that we have list of IDs available that we can use. All right, and this is the invocable method annotation. All right, this is the limitation. All right, so here let's take a look at this. So a list of primitive data type, or a list of lists of a primitive data type, a list of an S object type, or a list of S object type, a list of the generic S object type, which is the S object keyword itself, or a list of a user defined type. So I think we have more options. Let me try doing this. Let's see if I can pass in a opportunity record itself. Let's see if I can do that. So if I just say this as opportunity and call this opportunity record and say save, this accepts the parameter, and if I go back here, let's see if it allows us to send the opportunity itself. Let's see if that happens. Add action Apex opportunity process handler, and if I add the row, op record should be a field reference, and this should be nothing but select the opportunity record that started your process. So yeah, we are able to do that. Okay, just to certify that, let's click on save. Before that, I'll just give it a name, create task for opportunity. So it's not just list of IDs, but yes, primitive types can be used. All right, so let's click on save. This saved up fine. And if I go back to my developer console, let me just add a log here. System.debug found opportunity op record of 0. All right, I have passed one opportunity there and I have taken a list here. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm just trying to figure it out. So op record of 0 is something I want to get printed, and I also want to, or let's just see if op record 0 prints or not. Let's save this. I'll just get rid of this checkbox so that I can see my logs, and now I'll activate my process. Before activating, I'll just move this to the top so that this is always executed irrespective of other conditions. So let me just move this. So I've moved my current requirement on the top. All right, so let's click on activate. So now whenever the flag is set, it should go inside and execute my Apex action. Let's see that in action. Let's go to opportunity. And let's update that flag. Create task flag. I'll just set it to true. Say save. All right, so once I do that, let's take a look at the developer console. And here, if you notice, this is the method that's being executed. And if I click on the debug only section, I see I found an opportunity, which means I'm able to pass my opportunity record from the process builder to my Apex class, right? And it's taking up the parameter, not a problem. All right, so now what I want to do is, for each opportunity that's present in op record, I want to check if op dot create task field is checked. If this is true, then go inside and create a task record. That's what we want to do, right? So I'll just say task, new task to be created equals new task. I'll just copy this keyword, assigned to should be equal to, who should it be assigned to? It should be assigned to the opportunity owner's manager, right? I think that should work. Let's see. So I'm getting an error. What's the error? It says assigned to, okay, it should be assigned to ID, I believe. Let's take a look at what the API name is. So if I say open, I go to objects and I choose tasks. Account ID, there's priority. So I'll say priority is equal to high. Next thing is I want to do is I want to put a status, not started. I want to relate this particular record. So I'll say what ID is equal to current opportunities ID, and I want to associate it with someone. So I'll use the who ID. Okay, so who ID would be op.owner.manager ID. Let's see if that works. Right, so this works, and I'll just add my task.add. I'll just add my task here, and I'll just define this particular list on the top. All right, I'll get rid of my debug log, get rid of the extra spaces, and here outside this particular loop, I'll check if add my task is not empty, only then insert this list. This should insert my task records and associate them with the opportunity. Now let's try to debug and see if this works or not. All right, let's go back. Let's go to opportunity. Let's go to Jackson controls. Let's go to details and let's update the flag to true. So I'll just mark this true here, save. And now if I take a look at this record here, let's see activity. I have a task, right? And if I open this task, this is currently not started. I did not put a subject and a due date, my fault, but you see the priority is high and it is related to Jackson controls and created by the assigned to the user who is the opportunity owner, right? All right, so the task has been created based on our Boolean and we have been successfully able to call Apex class from our process builder, right? But one more interesting thing to notice that our use case said that we only want to execute this when the record is created, right? But now when we are updating the records, it's still executing. How do we put a check on that? So our opportunity process builder is created for both created and updated scenarios, right? And I have some other use cases which need the update scenario to help them execute. But for this particular scenario, I only want to ensure that the record is created. So is there any check that I can put to identify whether the record is new, right? So let me see if I have something on the field level. I mostly do not. So what I have to do is I have to go to the formula evaluates to true action and I can use the is new function here. So if I open the function category and I try to search is new, let's go to logical. Let's try to find. So you see is new function is here. So this is your is new function. What does this do? This ensures whether your record is new or it's coming for an update. So what I'll do is I'll say is new and I cannot write and like this. And what's my field? My field is create task is set. So this particular value. Let's try to save this. All right. I'll just go back to developer console. I'll add the subject also. Right, and now let's go back and try to see on this particular opportunity, or let's say some other opportunity which does not have the flag checked. Let me try to check the flag and let's see if it creates the task or not. I saved it, and if I go to activity now, I see a follow-up task coming in, which means, oh, I have to activate the process builder. That's my fault. I'll just activate, and now let's check it. So if I go to opportunities and I open my first op, let's go to the details tab and click on the create task button. It should not create a task now, but let's see, let's test it out. If I go to activity, I do not see a task, right? But if I go and create a new opportunity now, and I just go ahead and say test op for task creation, right? I'll just put the mandatory fields. I'll just set these up, and here I'll check the create task flag. All right, and let's try to save it now. Does the task get created? Yes, a follow-up task has come up, right? So this is how you can distinguish between a record is new or a record is coming in for update, even though your process builder takes care of all the scenarios, right? So you can have your criteria node written accordingly, and that's when your formula evaluates to true option comes in handy, because you cannot set these kind of functions or use these kind of functions on conditions are met, because they only use the field level values for comparison. All right, so we were successfully able to call Apex class from a process builder. The only key identifier or a distinguishing fact being that you need to write a method which should have the invocable method annotation on top of it. All right, and one interesting thing we learned was it supports only primitive parameters. So it could be list of IDs, it could be list of objects, but nothing more than that. All right, you cannot have maps and you cannot have other options available, only primitive data types and primitive objects, right? So that's all from this particular use case. Let's take a look at the next use case we have, which is Quip. So for Quip is nothing but, a plugin or kind of a small package inside Salesforce that lets you work with documentation. So let's say you want to attach a document to a record. Let's say you want to remove your documentation from a record. You can do all of that using Quip, right? So in this particular use case, we'll try to figure out how to attach the consent document to the lead record as soon as it is marked as qualified, which means the lead, once the status is moved to qualified, the consent document will be attached. All right, so let's go ahead and try to see how this works and what is Quip really. So this time it is for lead, so I'll go back to all processes and I'll go to my lead rating update process. I'll click on clone, I'll create a new version, and here I'll create a new criteria. So is my lead qualified, right? That's my condition, and I'll put that condition here, stage, I think it's status equals, okay, I don't see a qualified, but let's say we want to check for working contacted. Okay, let's use this one. I'll say save, and once if it is working contacted, we want to add an action that is for Quip. So if you see, we have Quip as an option here. I'll just choose this, and here what you see is that, you know, a good chunk of fields open up that you have to populate, and you can just put a name, attach consent info, and here if you see under the Quip actions, you have all the actions associated to setting up or, you know, unsetting a document, associating it with a user, removing members, adding documents, creating a new folder. All of it is available here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to attach a document, right? That's what I want to do. I'm just taking one example. There are a number of things that can be done here. It's more or less surrounding documents and folders, right? So what I'll do is I want to attach the document. As soon as I choose that, it asks me to give a URL of the document URL. So to do that, I have to go back and create a document. So for example, let's assume that we have a document created and it's available. So if I go to files, let's see, if I go to files and I create a new, upload a file, let me just find out something. Let's say this is the meal planner that I want to upload. All right, and this is the file that I want to attach. All right, so I'll just copy the public link. I'll just create a link. Let's not create a public link. Let me do something. I'll just let's open and let's click on share. Okay, I think I might have to create a link so that I can put the URL. So this is the link. I'll just say copy. I'll say done. I'll go back to my process builder and I'll attach this particular value here, the URL, right? If you notice, this is the URL for my Salesforce org, and this takes me to the document. So this is the value. And what record do you want to attach it to? I want to attach it to my lead record, right? I'll just choose the lead ID. So this particular record should get the document attached to it, right? Once I'm good with it, I'll say save. And this says we cannot find an action with the name and action type you defined. So why is that so? Let's click on save. Let's cancel it. Let's add the action again. Attach document. I'll say this is a type is document. The value is this particular value here. I want to attach a document. I don't want to create a new one. So this would be create. This would be the value, and I'll attach it to the record. I'll attach it to the lead ID. All right, let's try to save it. So this says we cannot find an action with the name and action type you specified. Let's try to debug. What's this? Process builder deployment error. We cannot find an action. So if I try to debug this, so this might be for something else that we already created and we are not using it. So let me do something before going here. Let me just delete this particular node, right? Let me just get rid of this. So delete. Maybe that's creating an issue. Is my lead qualified? This is the current ask, and I want to add an action which is for Quip, and here I want to attach a doc. I'll say attach document to record. This should be the, sorry, where's the value? This value should be this particular link right here. I'll attach a record. This should be the lead ID. I'll say choose and I'll say save. So it still says me the same thing. So let's do something. If I want to try something else, let's see if I can do that. Create new document, and I'll just say document title is consent document. Content type is HTML. So this is to certify you have been contacted by one of our agents. Alright, I'll just click on save. So this still gives me the same error. So probably there's something wrong with this lead rating update. Let's see what's the problem. Let's say cancel. Let's refresh. Let's go in again. Lead rating. I'll say clone. Oh, this is already, it does not let me activate it. So let's say clone. I'll create a new process and something weird's happening with this lead. So yeah, let me just get rid of these two inactive versions. All right, and now let's go back to the lead rating update process and let's clone it and create it one more time. Let's try one more time. Add criteria. What was our criteria? Lead stage, working contacted, right? So find a field, status, working contacted, save, Quip, attach doc. I'll just say attach document. Choose the current lead, save. So this is not letting me save it, not sure what's happening, but once you save this here, you have to activate your process builder, and once you do that, the document will be attached to the record, right? Let me do one more thing. Let me try to create a folder. Maybe that should be simpler. The folder name will be consent folder, save. So it's not letting me save anything basically. So let's do something. Let's check one more thing, whether unable to use Quip in process builder. Let's try to debug this. Let's try to give it probably 5 minutes, or else we'll drop it. Okay, so Quip actions in process builder, right? So it says that Quip is retiring slides. That's okay, but what I want to do is I want to create a document, or I want to attach a document, right? So let's take a look at this particular example. So in order to create a new document, new folder, new chat, we just need to fill the relevant fields. I don't even see any kind of limitations, but let's go down and let's see if there are any limitations. Send an email, send a custom. I don't see any limitations here, so not sure what's stopping this. I'll try with one more object maybe. Let's try it with one more object. Instead of lead, let me choose opportunity or maybe a contact. Let's go back. Let's go to process builder. And let's try to write a contact process, right? So here we already have one. Let me try to use this. Let's clone, save, and let's add a criteria saying is contact lead source web. I'll just use the lead source field maybe if I have it. So source lead source equals web. In that case, add a Quip action, attach document. I'll say attach document to a record. This should be the value, and attach it to the contact record itself. Choose, save. So it's not letting me do anything right now. Probably something is wrong with this particular Quip functionality, or else because I have done this before and this should work. Let's do this. Let's try to attach to record account ID. What if I want to associate it to a account record? No, it does not let me do anything. So that's okay. But once you set this up here and activate your process, what will happen internally is as soon as the criteria is met, your Quip action will run and it will attach the document or create a folder based on whatever options that are available here. If you notice, you can You can do any one of these, right? You can create documents, you can copy documents, you can send out a message, you can send a message in chat. So all of this on the Quip side of the world, you can do it. All right, so that was the Quip use case. Our next use case is quick actions, right? In this particular use case, we'll try to automate a quick action execution from process builder. So the use case is, as soon as a task is marked completed, create another task for the task owner to get the previous task reviewed by the manager, right? So we'll have to create one more task whenever a task is completed for that same particular guy, right? Let's go to process builder. And what should be our object and our criteria? Object should be task and the criteria should be the status is completed, right? So let's go to task process builder. And I have this node created which says is task completed and the status is equal to completed, right? I'll say save, and here I'll add a quick action. So I'll say add an action, and here I should see something for quick action, and this one right here is the one. So I'll say create one more task. Alright, and what do I want to do? I have three options here. Either I can go to the specific object and find a quick action for that object. So if I go to task, I can see some actions are there. You can update the priority, you can update the status. What if I go to contact? I see contact related actions there. There's nothing available on contact, which is fine. If I go to account, do I have anything there? There's nothing here, right? What about event? Do I have event? Nothing here. What about activity? So there's no activity object. What about product? Right? So based on the object actions that are already defined, you get the options available, right? That's the object type. What about the type? You can choose a specific kind of scenario, whether you want to create a record, update a record, or log a call, right? But again, these should be quick actions that are configured. So if I say update a record, I can see the same actions that are available under the task object are available. And what about create a record? For create a record, I see these options for new. You can either create a new child case, you can create a task from a feed item, you can create a group member or a group record. So these are the create options for the type. But what about global actions? These are the global actions that you see on your mobile app when you log in, or the ones that help you quickly create some records, right? Those are the global actions. So here you have two options. Either you can log a call and you can find a log a call action, or you can also create a record. So here create a record will give you all the options for the global actions that are currently present. So if you see account, case, contact, event, all of these are present. And what I want to do is I want to go for a new task, right? I'll say new task, and here I have to assign it to someone. So who should this be assigned to? This should be assigned to the current task owner, right? Or rather the assigned person. Let's take a look at assigned to ID, and the new task should also be assigned to the current person who's assigned to it. The subject would be follow-up task, and I'll add the status as not started. Priority would be medium. I don't see a priority field, which is fine. What else do I have? The due date, right? So I can pick a due date, and I'll create a formula, and I'll say the formula should be within 7 days, right? I'll just put this here. All right, any other field do we want to populate? Let's see. Status we have already done, and related to ID we can associate it to a related record, right? We can associate it to this particular task itself, right? So I can just find the current task and I can associate it with this particular task. All right, let's click on save. So this will create a new task record. I'll say activate, confirm. And now let's test it. So basically what I have to do is I have to go to task and mark a task complete. So if I go to this follow-up task and I say mark it as complete, so this is completed. And if I take a look at the task screen now, another task should be created, right? So you see this one, the follow-up task, which is just created. All right. No, this is the completed one. This is not the follow-up one. Let's go ahead and let's click on open tasks and let's take a look at. Okay, looks like our task record did not get created, right? Let's take a look at that. Why is that so? So whenever a task is created or edited and it checks whether the task status is completed, right? Did I mark it complete? Let's try to do it from here. If the task is completed and I say save, it says subject is mandatory. Let me just pull in something, save. So when I do that, the task is completed, and do I see any task created for this particular task? Let me give it a unique subject name so that I'm able to figure out whether this is the task that I've created, right? So I'll just give it a unique name. Create one more time. Status is not started, and I'll name this. The subject should be new task assigned. All right, and I'll just say save. Let's click on activate, confirm. All right, now let's go back to the task. Let's say that let's go to a different task. This is a follow-up task, and let's try to mark it complete. Let's see what happens if I mark this complete and say save. And now I go to the test op for this particular record. I see a follow-up task, right? So there's a follow-up task, but again I don't see this is the one. Let's go to task list view, and let's click on today's tasks, or maybe open tasks, right? Urgent task to work on is there, but the record new task assigned, yeah, this one right here. So this has come up and it is created by Himanshu. It is assigned to the task owner, which was again me, and it has a due date which is today +7, right? So it's working fine. So you are able to use a quick action that's there, and you are able to create records, you are able to log a call, you are able to use any global action, and you can use that to automate the global action also. All right, based on any entry criteria. All right, let's take a look at the next use case. All right, so now that we have completed all our use cases, I hope you are fairly comfortable with all the use cases or all the actions that you can do with the process builders. And writing criteria nodes are simple. All you have to ensure that you write them in a sequential logic wherein one case does not conflict with the other, and you still can have multiple nodes executing. That's fine. And all the immediate actions that are available from process builder can help you automate a lot of stuff, right? Fairly powerful from workflows, but yes, once we do flow builder, you'll see that flow builder is the actual deal, is the real deal, right? Now immediate actions are covered. All the use cases from immediate actions that are triggered immediately are done. But what about scheduled actions, right? Something that you want to defer in the future. So for that we have a use case, and let's try to understand how scheduled actions work, right? First of all, if I were to take you to a process builder, let's go back to all processes and let's open the opportunity process maybe. Let's see. Yes. So if you notice, if you take a look at this, all of these nodes, what you see is that a scheduled action is available only for this node, but you don't see it for the other nodes here. Why is that so? This is only because if I go to this node and I go to the advanced setting, the checkbox here is marked as checked, which says the node should only execute when the specified changes are made to the record. And when you do that, only then you get your scheduled actions available. You do not get it for every update that happens. So you have to ensure that you check that box, and only then you can get your scheduled actions in. Okay. The other way to get it is, if your record is created, you can still schedule your actions. But if you have a scenario wherein the record is created or edited, in that case you have to go to the node and you'll have to go to this advanced section and mark this checked, so that only it runs subsequently when it meets the criteria, and that's where you'll get the scheduled actions available. All right, let's now take a look at our use case. It says send an email to the opportunity owner 5 days before the opportunity close date, informing her to take necessary actions to close the deal. Okay, so 5 days before the opportunity closes, we want to update or inform the opportunity owner that take an action. All right, that's our scheduled action, and this should only trigger 5 days before the close date, not today, not tomorrow, 5 days before the close date, right? Let's go and let's clone our opportunity process, and here let's create a node. So I just want to check whether is opportunity still open. If it is open, I want to trigger a scenario or 5 days before, right? So what I can say is the stage is not equal to closed one, stage is not equal to closed lost, which means it is still being worked on, right? So I can just choose these two things. And if you notice, we have filter logic here, similar to how you have on list view filters, you have it on formulas. You can customize the logic, and instead of 1 and 2, you can also use 1 or 2, right? You can customize your filter based on whatever logic you want to evaluate. So here we want to say here we want to ensure that both of these conditions are met, because that would mean that it is not currently closed, it is open, right? So I'll say all of the conditions are met here, and I'll say save. Before saying save, I'll check this box and say subsequently meet criteria, so that I get the scheduler action available. right? Once I click on save, I see the set schedule option for my scheduled actions. I'll click on set schedule, and what's our use case? 5 days before the opportunity close date. As simple as that, right? I'll click on save, and what should happen? An email alert should go out. So I'll just say add action, and here I can choose the same options that are available in immediate. So I'll say email alert, send email to owner, and I'll just choose a email alert. Let's see if I have something. I think I created one email alert, but let's see if I can use that. Let's see. Setup, email alert. So I have email alert for contact. I just want to show how to set it up. So I'll just put it here. The thing is, this is not for opportunity, so I'll not get it. So I'll have to create a new email alert here. I'll say opportunity alert. Object would be opportunity. So only the relevant objects email alerts will show up. Not all will show up, right? So I'll say opportunity. I'll choose an email template. I'll just put up anything for now. I'll just send it to Himanshu, and I'll just say save. Okay. So this is saved. And now if I go back to my process builder, I say cancel and I say refresh. Opportunity process. So 5 days before, I want to add an email alert, and I want to choose the opportunity alert. Right now it's showing up. So alert owner. Say save. So once I save this and activate, what will happen is whenever an opportunity is not closed or won, this will basically evaluate and figure out whether it's 5 days before the close date. If that's the case, it will alert the owner, right? That's how it will work. I will not be able to show it to you as a test right now because this will not run immediately. This is a scheduled action. So, but yes, this should work as expected. You can try it out. All right. So that was about scheduled actions, and you can do pretty much everything that you do with immediate actions. You can do the same thing with scheduled actions. All right. Now there are some considerations, right? Let's take a look at these considerations. Because date and time is involved, we want to understand how things work really, right? I've put up some interesting use cases which will be helpful to understand the execution. So first option, schedule option availability. So this option is only available when you create a record or when you are updating to meet a particular criteria, which is why you see the node only on specific cases, on this one, because you have check the criteria that says you want to execute it only when the specified changes are made to the record, or else if you would have just said, only when a record is created, you would get the scheduled actions available. That's the first thing, right? Already discussed. Next thing, what about if the event is in the past? So if something is set as a schedule for a past date time, Salesforce evaluates it immediately within an hour. So let's say you have just defined something which evaluates and is basically something that has gone in the past. So what happens then? So what Salesforce will do is it will immediately evaluate it, and in within the next 1 hour, you will get the triggered action result. It could be an email alert, a field update, whatever it is, it will happen immediately, almost within an hour. Okay. Event in the future. What if something is scheduled in the future? In that case, Salesforce evaluates the date time based on the user who created the process. So right now, who's logged in? Himanshu is logged in. What is the local language and time zone of this particular user? Based on that, the date and time calculations will happen, not based on the current logged in user. So it will depend on who created the process. Based on their time zone, based on their date time, the calculations will happen. All right. What's the next thing? Criteria eligibility. So if a record does not continue to match the entry criteria, Salesforce cancels the scheduled action. So for example, in our use case, right, what happens if there are 5 days left? Right, today is 8th, and let's say the close date is 13th, right? So what if on the 9th or the 10th the opportunity is closed, right? In that case, will it continue to check this particular criteria and send out an email? No, it will not. Then it will cancel the scheduled action because the entry criteria does not match at all. All right, that's the criteria eligibility. What's the next thing? Criteria changes. So if a record undergoes a field change that is part of the entry criteria, and if the values still satisfy the entry, Salesforce recalculates the date and time to schedule the action. So for example, we have these two conditions, or let's say we have one more field that is the entry criteria here. And what if the value of that field changes in between these 5 days? So what will Salesforce do? It will recalculate the date and time. If it impacts the date and time, it will recalculate it. For example, let's say the close date is postponed. It is not 13th anymore, it is 18th. So what will Salesforce do? Salesforce will start counting from 13th, and it will send out the mail on 13th. It will not send out the mail on 8th based on 5 days. So 5 days before will switch. The 5 days before will get postponed also, because the schedule will be recalculated based on the new date. All right, that's the criteria change node. So what if you deactivate your process? You change your mind and you just deactivate your process builder. In that case, if the process is deactivated and a scheduled action exists, the scheduled action is not cancelled or inactivated, which means it will still be active. All right. Those were some considerations, some important considerations that give you a good idea about the scheduled action. Thing is limitations. The last thing we need to see about process builders is the limitations. So what are the key limitations? You need at least an enterprise edition to use process builders. You cannot use it in essential or your professional. You have to have enterprise or unlimited editions. Okay. The second thing is the outbound messages that you were able to send from workflow rules cannot be sent from process builders. That's the only thing you cannot do from process builders. Everything else can be done compared to workflows, right? And the third thing is process builders are only available in English currently. So I believe 70-75% of the people do not speak English at all in this world. So yeah, maybe Salesforce can come up with something multilingual. But with flow builders, I don't think Salesforce will be doing anything with process builders anymore. But yeah, right now process builders are only available in English, no multilingual support. All right, that's all I had. With this particular lecture, I hope I was able to explain process builders the way it's supposed to be, and you should be able to now create any immediate action, write good criteria notes, modify the if-else conditions, and evaluate formulas, and also schedule actions from process builder. Yes, process builders will be retiring soon. Right now it's workflows, next would be process builders, but it's important to head start with process builders, because this for sure will help you setting up flow builders, because a lot of stuff is same and a lot of stuff is again setting up fields, drag and drop, point and click. So writing these formulas, writing these actions, and understanding how the execution happens, what's going behind the scenes, it's all important for any other tool that Salesforce provides for automation, right? So that's all with this particular video, process builders. I'll see you in the next lecture. Till then,